Goal Getting Podcast, episode 31. Want to achieve your dream goal? Listen to the tips from the guy who made it happen to himself. I dropped 70 pounds going from a 4X to a 1X in 4 years. I went from 10K to 6 figures without a college degree. You too can get the goals you set. It's time to live your best life now. I'm your host, Tony Woodall, and welcome to Goal Getting Podcast.
We could have been working together all this time and letting our ideas clash and bounce off of each other, and we just haven't been doing it. And immediately at that point, I was like, that's my goal. I'm going to start building a bunch of masterminds full of just young entrepreneurs that are hungry and wanting to connect and truly step up to the next level and get rid of that scarcity mindset, because I think that's one of the biggest things it did for me. That really helped me to get over it for good, and because I was around people who all had that abundance mindset already.
Hello, it's a great day, goal getters. I am so excited to have our guest with us today. This is Tony Woodall, your host for Goal Getting Podcast, and with us today is Ian Warner. Ian is an Olympic track and field athlete competing with the Canadian Olympic team in the 2012 Summer Olympics in London. Now, Ian ran in the 4x100 meter relay, and Ian is a dedicated athlete and now business owner, working with athletes to help them succeed in athletics, business, and life, as well as other things. He's just basically a serial entrepreneur these days and a goal getter. Ian, like most high-level athletes, utilizes goals in his life to help him achieve his dreams. And I could go on and on about this exciting athlete and gentleman, but I am going to let Ian tell us about himself. Ian, welcome to Goal Getting Podcast.
Hey, Tony, it is such a blessing to be on the show. Just the thought of thinking about go getting, that word, it just gets me excited, and I couldn't be more blessed to be here.
Well, thank you so much.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, and just to kind of dive into this my story a little bit. I started running track at a really young age. I started running at age 7, and I knew from a young age that if I set the goal of going to those Olympics, because in the 96 Olympics, Donovan Bailey won the 100-meter dash, and that he was a Canadian athlete, and that's the event that I run. So I was like, well, that's what I want to do. So it started at age 7, and I started working at it, and I made sure to surround myself with people who wanted to be the best. So I went to the best high school, and that meant I had to take the public transit in Toronto an hour and a half every single day just to get to that school. And that's something a lot of people weren't willing to do, but I knew the power in being around greatness,
Mm-hmm.
And from there it paid off. I ended up getting a scholarship to Iowa State, and while I was at Iowa State, I faced a lot of struggles while I was there, like any athlete does, but I ended up also falling in love with entrepreneurship while I was there. And I had an idea for an app that would help mom and pop shops in college towns to market themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was I went forward and I talked with some of my professors, and we ended up getting an introduction to a former CFO of General Mills. He was an alumni of Iowa State. We presented to him, and he gave us a $150,000 investment, and we failed miserably. We didn't make $1. And that was my first real entrepreneurial failure. And the real reason it happened is because we never expected to even get that far where we would get that investment, and we never had goals. And it just kind of goes back to show the power of having those goals. But anyways, at the same time as that failure, I was succeeding on the track because I had that goal. I had that thing that I was extremely focused on, and I knew, the London 2012 Olympics were coming up. And I'll tell you just how powerful this goal was for me. When I was 6 years old, I went to London because that's where my dad is from. And I actually told my brother, I would never go back to that place again. Once it got awarded to London, the Olympics, I said I would never go back again unless it was with the Olympic team. So, and I was serious. I was never going to go back to that country ever again, to England ever again if I didn't make it. And, 2012, that year came, things were just they were lining up really well, and I made the team. And I'll tell the rest of that story a little bit later in the podcast. But entrepreneurial wise, right now I currently I'm running a tie company with my wife called Tie Down Ties. We make custom made ties for weddings and for young professionals. And then I also have dedicated a lot of my life to helping athletes to have some of the same success that I have had in both entrepreneurship and as an athlete.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Now, I noticed you also have a book out that you wrote called Endure, and it's an athlete's guide to faith, hope, and success.
Yes, sir.
How's that going? I saw that you had some good success with that. Can you tell me what Endure means and what that means to you and why you chose that title?
I chose the title Endure because that is the only way to succeed at anything. Our society has glamorized success by making it look easy, by making it look like, it always happens overnight, But anytime you know someone who actually has been really successful and you dig into their story, they've always gone through something. And that's what I really wanted to focus on. One thing a lot of athletes always contact me about, they get an injury or something like that, or they don't get the amount of playing time that they were necessarily expecting, and they want to give up. And I let them know, enduring is something that's going to have to happen in anything that you do. It's not just being an athlete. If you start your own business, you're going to have to go through tough things. If you have a job, you're going to have to endure things if you want to succeed with that. And that's just something I've always been really passionate about. I've had a lot of injuries in my life. I've gone through a lot, and endurance to me is the key to success. That's what it means to me.
Gotcha. Excellent. No, that's great. I totally get that. And, to be able to endure is, something that has to happen for an Olympic athlete especially. But, in general, if you really want to succeed, you have to endure. And you mentioned a new business, the Tie Down Ties that you've started. What brought you from being an athlete and, in your entrepreneurial journeys to, a tie company? Because I think that I love ties and good quality ties.
I think sometimes it's good to get outside of your comfort zone, and I was very used to dealing with athletes, and I have a very strong network of athletes, but to some point that strength ends up being a weakness, because if all you know is athletes and people in that one segment of the world, you're missing out on all the other good things that are out there. And I also wanted something that I can work with my wife on, sometimes I get so passionate about my businesses that she's not involved in, and she can't understand that passion, But with Tied Down Ties, this is something that we can share together. When we fail together. When we have successes, we succeed together. We have goals. We set our goals together, and it just helps bond our new marriage.
That's great. And I think we talked earlier, and it was towards a quality of life that you're working with and towards that helped you get to that, particular goal that you had. You had difficult times, and a lot of times people have goals to just improve their quality of life, and sometimes starting a business may be that one that does that. Can you enlighten us a little bit on that?
Yeah, I was working, and I went from being an Olympic track athlete and then going straight into the corporate America role. And I'll never forget one of my coworkers, when she found out that I went to the Olympics, and she looked at me and she said, why are you here? and to be honest, I didn't even have an answer. It really did hit me. I was not to say that because I'm an Olympic athlete, that means I'm better than other people. No, but it made me think about my potential. What can I do for this world? And the reality was I wasn't contributing much to the world, and I didn't have a lifestyle that I liked. I spent an hour every day minimum in my car. I got to see my wife and spend quality time with her for an hour and a half at most. That wasn't a lifestyle that I wanted. I wanted to have more freedom to do what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, with who I wanted to do it with.
Excellent. No, that's key to, having a rich life and having, life of significance and purpose. And it's amazing. A lot of people, they see somebody like you, they're working with them, and they go, why are you here? The question we should ask them also, well, why are you here? Why do you want to be in this particular environment? And you have the ability to do whatever you want, as you do and have done. So that's exciting that you've taken a different route instead of being in that corporate environment and going to, work for yourself and be an entrepreneur. So what are some of your other feelings about entrepreneurship and goals?
Well, actually, one of the biggest things I've discovered recently with entrepreneurship, and it's kind of what my next venture is that I've been working on, called Bounce Back Entrepreneur. And what I've realized is, for young entrepreneurs trying to get into it, I realized that they all quit around the 4 or 5 month mark. Not all of them, but a lot of them quit around that time because, again, it goes back to endurance. They don't realize that it's going to get hard before it gets better. We have these visions and these dreams of how great things can be, and we set these huge goals for ourselves, like, oh, I want to make $1 million, I want to make $10 million, But before you can make $1 million, you have to make $1.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose sight of that. And I've been really focused on trying to help as many people as I can with dealing with that struggle and not isolating themselves as an entrepreneur and being alone, because it's when you're alone that you really start to drift off of your path, But when you have people who you're talking with, who are holding you accountable, who you're in mastermind groups with, that's what makes all of the difference. And coming from an athlete who ran an individual sport, I'm not used to that.
Right.
I'm used to when you're on the track, it's you against the whole world. There's no one's going to help you. No one's going to run that race for you. And when you lose, you can't blame anyone but yourself. But with entrepreneurship, it's a little bit different. Like, you need that community. You need those people around you. And that's one thing I've really been working on, trying to draw people together, trying to draw those young minds together to realize that, it's going to get tough, but you got to bounce back and keep focused on those goals.
Excellent. Yeah. And you brought up masterminds and, working together. And that's one of the things that Napoleon Hill is famous for saying, and I believe fully in, is that you have to get together with like minds and, put that mental energy together and have trusted advisors, etc., as your, backbone of your processes. I mean, it's really key to that. So that's a good key point. How do you go from being an individual athlete where it's just you running down one lane within a track to working as an entrepreneur and, working with other people? That must be tough is it tough? I guess not. It must be. Is it tough to, move into that type of a realm, to work in that kind of environment?
The same thing that I would say held me back or was limiting me is the same thing that limits a lot of people, actually, because I realized what I was doing with track and the mindset I had that kind of made me successful there was also a similar way of how people go through life. And I really had to focus, like, really hard on developing an abundance mindset. Mm-hmm. I thought very scarcely. Even if I had money, I didn't ever want to spend money to invest in myself. I didn't want to give other people money. I was so closed in and closed off to other people, and I thought bad things about money, and I thought money was evil, and I grew up thinking all of these things, and I didn't want to work with other people, because to me, I want to do it all by myself. I don't need, no, Tony, I don't need you to help me do anything. I don't want to be on your show because,
Right.
I don't need you to help me. I'm going to figure out a way to get it all done myself, and really it's an ego thing when you do that, because you want all the credit. That's why you're really doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to have to say, hey, this person helped me out. This person helped me out. And, so I really had to, I struggled with that, and it made entrepreneurship really hard for me in the start, because I didn't want to connect with anybody. Like I didn't try to, I made no efforts to connect with other entrepreneurs. And I really had that mindset that was like, if I see your podcast doing really well, then I'm thinking, well, if you're having success, then I can't have any success. I didn't believe that two people could have success at the same time. And
Right.
it took years to constantly just work at this. And my wife still to this day, she helps me with it. If I ever say anything that is any way scarce and not truly having an abundant mindset, she always will put me in check.
Right. And I think a lot of people, and that's great to have that support system, somebody there to, keep you in the straight and narrow and keep you on the path properly, because, without that, sometimes we do continue to get off that track.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, a lot of that I think is brought on by fears, that people have: fear of poverty, fear of failure, of different types of fears, and again that mindset, that not having the abundance mindset, is attributed to fears. And you've spoken about fears before and how we have to overcome that. What are some of the fears that may have plagued you as an athlete and may have plagued other athletes or people in business that you're aware of, that you're able to use goals that you've used to overcome those fears?
Fear is a tough one because I think for myself, I think I've lived my life pretty fearless. Like, now I'm not to say that I've never been scared, but I always have believed and seen fear as a perfect opportunity to be courageous. You can't have courage without having that fear to go with it. So my goal has always been to be like, all right, acknowledge the fear. Every time I'm scared, acknowledge it, but then tell yourself, Ian, keep walking, keep going forward, keep enduring. And I think that's the biggest thing that has changed the game for me. I remember that feeling of going off to college and I'm coming from Toronto to Iowa State, and you start having doubts and you start getting kind of scared of the unknown. But it's like, hey, keep walking forward. It's all right. Just recently, my wife and I moved to Kansas City, and I quit my job and all of that stuff. And, I think quitting my job was probably one of the scariest things I ever did, because, you have that, you have that nice little paycheck coming in and you get comfortable and, you have a family and stuff like that. And you want to do everything you can to support your family. But I knew it wasn't right. And I had to say, man, I'm terrified to do this, but just keep walking forward. And that's something that I've just ingrained in my head. If fear arises, it's an opportunity to be courageous. So keep walking forward.
Excellent. No, that's true. You just got to keep with it and overcome those fears.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. You've got an amazing story, and just being an Olympic athlete is something that most people haven't and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So you've really come a long way, and now you're an entrepreneur helping other people, athletes and non-athletes, succeed. You've got some great programs out there to offer people. Can you tell us quickly about some of the programs that you have that help people overcome and endure?
So the biggest thing that I have going forward, I think, is mastermind groups. And the reason this is actually really big is because coming from that scarcity mindset, a lot of people hear about mastermind groups, but they don't actually realize the power in them. And I know this because I was an entrepreneur for years, and just in the last couple of months, I got into a mastermind. And as soon as I got into it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing. How could I have ignored this for all of these years? And when I started talking with other young entrepreneurs and I realized none of you guys are in masterminds, we could have been working together all this time and letting our ideas clash and bounce off of each other.
Yeah.
And we just haven't been doing it. And immediately at that point, I was like, that's my goal. I'm going to start building a bunch of masterminds full of just young entrepreneurs that are hungry and wanting to connect and truly step up to the next level and get rid of that scarcity mindset. Because I think that's one of the biggest things it did for me. That really helped me to get over it for good. And because I was around people who all had that abundance mindset already. But then the second thing is, I have an online course coming out specifically for athletes, and it's going to help athletes with that transition from being athletes to being entrepreneurs. Because I strongly believe that, athletes have a lot of the skills that are necessary to be successful with entrepreneurship, and they just don't realize it. And they don't realize that because they've built up so many years of dedication and independence and doing things that they don't want to do. Being a successful athlete, you can't live off of your feelings. You have to live off of what needs to be done at that time. And that transitions really well to entrepreneurship. And that program's called Athlete CEO. So those are,
Athlete CEO.
Yes.
Okay. Athlete CEO. Okay, good. And I think, that's something that other people that aren't athletes necessarily could learn from, because you need the same skills that an athlete has, as you said,
Oh, yeah.
to be able to, endure and to be able to drive through those times when you have tough times.
Exactly.
So that's excellent.
And you know what I find the problem is I'm a strong believer in the fact that, you can go online right now and you can find a million ways to to make money, to be successful. They'll tell you all these different things that you can do, all these traits that you need to have. But the one that they just don't focus on enough to me is endurance. Because, Bill Gates can come here right now and he can give me the best business strategies in the world. But if I quit after 2 weeks, I'm still not going to be successful.
Exactly.
You got to hang in there. And people miss that.
Yeah, that's true. Perfect segue. I mean, that's great. I mean, that is very true. I keep thinking about the times that people quit right when they're getting ready to get started doing something, just can't endure. And that is very important. And to do that, maybe sometimes, our habits get in our way. We get into bad habits and whatever. But habits can make a person successful or not. So what are some of the habits that you as an entrepreneur do to help you be successful?
I would say the main one for me is consistency. I'm extremely consistent. Like when I tell you, I get up at 3:10 every single morning, whether I want to or not. I get up at 3:10. I eat healthy. I work out twice a day. I'm not even training to go to the Olympics or anything anymore. I still wake up in the morning. I still do my yoga. I still meditate. Then later in the day, I'll go run or do some hills or lift some weights. And, I take cold showers. I do that every day. And it's about building that confidence in yourself that you can continue to stick with it and just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. Because, if you're not consistent, it's going to be hard for you to endure when those hard times come because you haven't gotten in that routine of doing something, But when you're in that routine and that becomes who you are to your core, when it starts to get hard, it's who you are. So you're like, it's hard right now, but I've just got to keep walking forward. And you just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And, the amount of people have said to me, Ian, you cannot put in the amount of work you have consistently over these years and not reach unbelievable heights, And that's something a lot of people have said to me, and I believe it. It's just a matter of time if you just stay consistent with what you are doing. And I would say the second habit is I'm able to input new habits really quickly. If I read a book or I have a conversation with someone and they tell me something I'm doing is destructive, I can adapt really quick. I can, like, if I have some good solid proof that, hey, people who wake up early are successful, then it's not hard for me to start getting up early. If I find out, there's a food that I'm eating that I really enjoy that isn't good, I can cut it out just like that. And, recently that actually happened to me with sugar. Like I never really paid attention to how much sugar is in almost everything that is in grocery stores. And I never had to as much because I worked out so much that the sugar in some cases, it was good for me,
Right, yeah.
But now that I was done training at that level, I started paying attention to my diet even more. And I watched this documentary on Netflix. I think it was called Fed Up, and it just opened my eyes to like just certain things that I was eating, and I just cut those things out. I'm really good at self-starting myself and motivating myself to do it, and then because I'm consistent, once I start it and I knock it out for a couple of days, the ball's rolling, and I can do it for a long time.
Excellent. No, that's a good key, being adaptable. And sugar is bad, and I have a problem with that myself. And if you're not an athlete, it's could be detrimental to your lifestyle and your life, period. So you have to be good with that. Fed Up, I'll have links to that on our show note, and all the things that you've spoken with I'll have on our website on goalgettingpodcast.com/Ian, IAN, and we'll have that out for you goal getters so that you can connect, the things that Ian's sharing with us today.
Perfect.
Ian, I've got a couple other questions for you, and you talked about your failure that you had as entrepreneur in college and things like that. And What did you learn from that particular failure?
Oh man, if I had to choose one thing that I learned from losing that $150,000, it showed me that there really is more to everything than money. We got this money and we literally thought we were made. I don't know why. Like looking back on it, I understand. Like looking back on it, I get it. But at the time, we just were like living large. And it showed me that, you have to stay hungry and you have to stay humble. Like when you have those high moments, you have to know that it can turn bad just like that. So appreciate it and be grateful for that moment. But it can turn on you. So be grateful to the moment and, stay focused on why you were hungry in the first place. If you lose focus on that goal of why you started doing this just because you have the money, that's no good.
So you be grateful and stay busy, or I'm sorry.
No, yeah, no, I was just saying,
stay hungry.
Yeah, stay hungry. Yeah, stay hungry. Stay hungry
and stay hungry.
Stay focused on that goal because, if you let a little bit of success get to your head and you lose focus on that goal, it can all be taken away from you really quickly.
No, it's good advice and good experience there. And speaking of advice, when you were starting out in athletics and when you were starting out in business, what's some of the best advice that you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received was think big, set a huge goal, but you have to work backwards from that goal and reverse engineer it to the point where you can get it down to a step that you can complete in the next minute. If you can't get it to the point where you can complete something in the next minute, you're not going to know where to start. And that's what the problem is. I think a lot of times people set these big goals, and then they're like, all right, I have this huge goal. Now what do I do? And for me, for example, when I was 7 years old, I decided, I want to go to the Olympics. So to go to the Olympics, that means that I had to make some national teams. To do that, I had to set myself up in a position where I could be successful with track at that age, or where you're ready to go to the Olympics. That means I had to get down to the NCAA system, which means that I had to have a good high school career, which meant that I had to go to a good high school, which meant that I had to get good grades before I got into high school so I can get into the school I needed to go to. And you keep stair-stepping it down and down and down and down. And the path was actually really clear for me on what I needed to do.
That's great. Goal getters, did you hear what Ian was just saying? When you get your goals, you have to break them down into smaller pieces that you can understand what you need to do, each action step along the way. And most people don't understand that, especially at the young age that you were. So that is key. And that's one of the things that I started the goal getting program was because I used to get so motivated going to motivational seminars and get these big dreams and these big goals and never understand that you have to break it down and figure out how to get there before you can, get there. So it's not just, we don't have that Star Trek thing where you can beam yourself into the goal, kind of thing. So, unless we know what we're doing and where to go, that's great. That's some great advice. And, we need to understand that. And that's one of the reasons, like I said, that I started the goal getting program is to teach people that that's what has to be done. So you had some great advice growing up, and you did it exactly. So,
and just kind of to add a little bit on to my story with that, when I actually got to London, we were setting up and we were training to get ready for the Olympics. We were about a week and a half out, and the coach of the Canadian Athletic Olympic team, he told me that he was going to run someone else on the team instead of me. So just to put some context to my story, that's 15 years I put into my life training for one goal. And then when I got there, it got snatched out from me a week out from it. And that's how life goes sometimes. But that's why you have to be able to endure. It sucked, but I'll tell you what, it made me stronger because I went through, that was tough, and when you're tough, it gives you that confidence that you can go through anything. And I just use that story to inspire other people and help them understand, sometimes you're going to set a goal and you're not going to get it, But you know how much good things happened to me in that 15 years going after that goal? It's when I stop and think about that, I got to go to school for free. I got to travel all around the world. I made multiple national teams. I have that Olympic name that I can add to my brand, like there's so many things that came from it. So you can't just focus on just the end goal. It's about that journey, getting to that goal.
Right. And again, you did achieve your goal. You made it to the London Olympics on the Olympic team, so you did achieve your goal. The fact that you didn't run, may not be, it's not necessarily that you didn't achieve your goal.
Yeah,
so.
no, and that's what, that's how I kind of got over it. I had to realize like, no, Ian, you made the team. You did all the work. You made it fair and square. You did everything. It's just that, someone else made a decision that was outside of my control, and you have to live with that and just keep rolling with the punches.
Exactly. And that's the best thing. But you learned so much along that way, and you got to do so much. So you've achieved, some great significance there in your own life, and can now go forward with your life. You're still young, and you're going to go out, and I can just look forward to watching you excel at everything that you do. So I've got a couple more questions for you before I take the rest of your time here. Ian, what is the quote that hangs on your wall? A lot of us use quotes to, help inspire us and keep us motivated. Which one hangs on your wall?
One day at a time. That's it. One day. That's me, my brother, my dad. We live by that. One day at a time. If you see an elephant, and everyone says, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. That's it. You can't eat the whole elephant. It's impossible. But if you take life one day at a time, you figure out what you have to do tomorrow, and that's why it's great to set big goals. I'm all about it, but the only way to get to a big goal is to conquer it one day at a time.
That's phenomenal. Great advice, and great goal as well. You got to do that. So one day at a time, folks. Again, we'll have links to the quote on our show notes at goalgettingpodcast.com/Ian. Now, Ian, I have one quick question for you, and that's about books. Do you read books that motivate you, or things that you would recommend to our listeners that might inspire them or help them achieve the goals that they're trying to achieve?
Oh, for sure. One of my current goals actually is to read a book a week. So I have plenty of books that I could give right now, but I think I'm going to try and go with one that's kind of different that I don't think anyone would have given on the show yet, but I could be wrong. This book is called Turning the Thing Around by Jimmy Johnson, and Jimmy Johnson was a former coach of the Dallas Cowboys in their heyday when they won back in the 90s, and it's about his journey of how he went from just being a football player himself all the way to he went to Oklahoma. He was a coach at Oklahoma State. He coached at Miami where they won there, and then he went over to Dallas from there, and Dallas was really bad, and he turned them into America's team. And it's just really great on he had his goal. He had his goal set in his mind, and he knew what he wanted, and he understood how all of those little things came together to make him get to that point. And he says early on in the book, when he wrote the book, he was in his 40s, and he said, "There's no one thing that made me win a Super Bowl. It's 40 years of being alive that made me prepared to win a Super Bowl." Because he learned from all of his experiences.
Excellent. Well, I'll have to pick that up. Sounds interesting. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Johnson. He was a phenomenal coach, and just like you said, he turned it around for Dallas, and he's always been very successful when he puts his mind to it and gets in there and works. So I've heard some great things about some of the things that he's done in the past. So.
Oh no, yeah, great book to read. It's one of those classics that you kind of just sit back and take in. It's like you feel like you're taking in history a little bit with it.
Excellent, and nobody has recommended that before, so thank you for that.
Perfect,
so it's a good one.
I like it.
Good one. Now, again, I want to respect your time. I know you're busy with your entrepreneurial exploits, and I've got one last question for you, kind of a parting words of wisdom. What's the best advice you could give to our listeners that are trying to achieve their goals?
The best advice I can give, and for you to remember, is you couldn't climb the mountain if it was smooth. You know, it's going to get tough. No matter what you do, you're going to get into a rut and you're going to want to give up. Don't. Keep going. And, you know, every person who has achieved just greatness has done so by not giving up. They've done so by taking that tough moment, looking it in the face and being like, you're not going to get the best of me today.
Excellent. But that, I'm just sitting here thinking about you can't climb a mountain if it's smooth is such a good vision that you can have, because I can just see that, you know, without those obstacles or without those not even stumbling blocks, but
the rough
those,
edges,
the rough edges, you know, you wouldn't be able to get a grip. You wouldn't be able to pull yourself up. You wouldn't be able to take that extra step to be able to get there. You'd be just sliding down. So that's a great vision that you present to us there. I mean, that, like I said, as soon as you said that, I could see what the importance of that is. So thank you so much, Ian. That's a great, I'm going to use that, and we'll be definitely talking about that on our show notes, because I love that. That is just a great vision. You've got to have those things to step up on or to grab a hold of. And again, learning experience, as you said, it's not every day. It is every day. It's one day at a time that you have to live and break those goals down. So, Ian, you've been a wealth of information, a lot of great golden nuggets here for us today, and I really want to thank you for being on our show today, and I look forward to following the rest of your career and, you know, some of your stories, and I do want to keep in touch with you, but I do want to thank you for being on Goal Getting Podcast.
Oh no, thank you very much, Tony. And, you know, I'm a go-getter to the day I die, man. You know, so just what you're doing is phenomenal, and focusing on the power of goals and figuring out how to get to those goals, I think, is just extremely powerful. That goes right up there with endurance for me.
Well, good. Thank you so much. Now, one quick thing. How do people get in contact with you if they need to do that? And we'll put these up on our show notes as well. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to ask questions or do anything with you, you know, work with you or whatever?
The best way is on Twitter. I'm extremely active on Twitter. It's just Ian Warner 310. That's IANWARNER 310. And just tweet at me, and, you know, I'll follow you back, and you can DM me, and we can go from there if we want to email or whatever the case is. But Twitter is the best way by far.
Okay, great. So, folks, I'll have links to his Twitter handle on the show notes, but that's at Ian Warner 310, and follow Ian and get some of his great advice. He's got some great posts that he puts out there on Twitter. Just keep in touch with him and learn from him. He's got some great experience, great advice. So, Ian, thank you so much again. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk with you very soon.
You do the same, Tony.